George Lucas was this was the show that kind of went off without George, and I wanted to know if you ever still talk to him about anything that you're dealing with in the season 2 or future seasons or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like, hey George, I have this idea, what do you think? No, we don't talk like that. You know, when I see him, we cover any number of topics, TV shows we watch, or you know, I could never get him to talk sports, but that's George. So. But you know, before he left, we had a lot of discussions, and I would bring up things that I felt were very important, like Ahsoka and Darth Vader. And I'm like, hey, so if they ever met, what do you think would happen? And we would discuss it, and you know, I've done several drawings of that encounter as a result of it. And so I made sure that before it was officially, you know, separated, Disney and George, Star Wars and George, that I had this discussion with him, because now, you know, I don't really want to bother him with it. He created it. I would tell you that it's always going to be special to him, important to him. But I think that he also, you know, is excited to see what everybody does with it. I've shown him Rebels, you know, so he's seen it, and he knows that, you know, I followed the lessons I was taught as a good Jedi should. But I've expanded certain things that I wanted to do, and you know, but nothing I feel is out of accord with what he would have done. Every decision I made on Clone Wars I did, or any interview I did, I said, is this something I would say or do if George was here in the room? You know, because I so greatly respect that it's his universe. And even to this day, as I go forward doing things, I always ask myself, is that something he'd really want? You know, and the fans want all kinds of things, but you can't get caught up in that. And I'll tell you why. It's because Star Wars is so strong after so many years, and people love so many different aspects of it. You have to be careful what you're serving. So you have to always serve the story of Star Wars and the characters of Star Wars. And I would say, you know, for the prequel kids who love their prequel movies, they're very vocal now about all the things they love about it. And I love them too. And they get a lot of flack for prequels, whatever, I don't care. There's some of the most exciting moments in those films. And I've always been a big supporter of them. And I'm still, you know, I treat Rebels the same way I did Clone Wars, which is if it's something worth selling, I bring it in. So there's still stuff from the EU, what was called the EU is now called Legends, that appears in Rebels from time to time, the same way that it appeared from time to time in Clone Wars. It's just how we tell the stories, and George is always okay with that. So I continue.
Hi, I'm Sabina with Legion of Leia. This question's for Ashley. How is it coming into this storyline with Rebels? And you know, Ahsoka and Anakin were going through this scenario that Kanan and Ezra are going through. Do you bring a sort of, is it surreal, and do you bring that into your character for Ahsoka, and also would that influence how she might interact with Anakin, well now Darth Vader?
You know, it was different to perform Ahsoka in Rebels versus Ahsoka in Clone Wars. There's oftentimes I'll say a line and Dave will say, no, that's too sweet. You know, that's too cute, that's too sweet. That's too much like Ahsoka in Clone Wars. And I think I did have to adjust my performance quite a bit, and I almost channel like Obi-Wan more, like she's more of the master now, and almost like Kanan is, you know, Kanan and Ezra are like Ahsoka and Anakin. So Ahsoka doesn't have the relationship with Ezra like Anakin and Ahsoka. She's more like Obi-Wan. Like Ahsoka wasn't super close with Obi-Wan. She always looked up to him with a matter of like reverence and respect. And so I think Ahsoka, that's a good comparison for her in Rebels. And so it was different because for so long, I mean, we worked on Clone Wars from like 7 years, and I was the Ezra of Clone Wars, and so I automatically sometimes want to be snippy and sarcastic, and so I would say there's oftentimes I have to do a couple more takes to really get into Rebels Ahsoka.
But I did want to maintain parts of that too. Like I always felt it was important that a kid watching Ahsoka that grew up with Clone Wars can still see in there that there's still a part of her that will wink at you and has fun, because it's who she is. I mean, as a young person and as an older person, you still keep a lot of traits. So we just have to be very specific when it creeps in. Most of the time for me with Ahsoka, I think that she's looking at this world of these friends, and especially Kanan and Ezra, and it reminds her of the way things used to be, and things aren't that way now. That all got taken from her, and she's trying to figure out how does she move forward herself. But she very much respects them and cares about them, and is happy for them, but she doesn't have that anymore, and she wouldn't even inject herself or include herself in what's going on there, except in very minimal ways, as she figures out her own path through.
Dave, could you talk a little bit about, you've done so many voices and so many big events, big projects. Is it something different about being part of the Star Wars universe?
Oh yeah, I mean, for me, there's a lot very different about being part of Star Wars. I mean, first of all, this is something I've loved since I was a kid. I mean, I always show around the picture of the Jawa costume my parents made for me the Halloween after A New Hope was released in 1977. So this is something I was very interested in, definitely on my radar all of my life. So to be involved in something that you really love deeply as a kid, but to be in it, it is living a dream, like no other project that I've been involved with. And that it's such an enduring and beloved and interesting and rich universe, and that it continues to expand, that makes it even better. It's that it's not just kind of a one-off or a quick thing, that it's just part of this evolving, growing, living mythology planet that covers our planet. I mean, it's a remarkable thing. I don't know what to compare it to. I think it's fantastic.
And you've played more characters in Star Wars than any other actor in the world.
Well, I suppose
Like,
that's
you can't
probably
even
true.
count credited wise how many.
Yeah, I count every clone, so yeah.
That's right.
Every one of them gets counted.
That's right.
This one is for Vanessa and Freddie. How do you think the relationship between Hera and Kanan has grown and changed as they're sort of the head of the family on board the Ghost?
Well, the threats are a lot bigger in season 2 than in season 1. Season 1 is a bit more happy-go-lucky because we're winning. We're dealing with small-town government, and it's not that big a deal. In season 2, I mean, everybody's seen our summer movie now. It's Vader, so it's, you know, the stakes can't get higher than that. So, you know, when you guys saw that, you know, my wife's playing the seventh sister, and we don't know the gentleman playing the fifth brother, but we know that there are 2 of them chasing us, so there's not going to be as much time for those sort of, you know, hey, here's a private moment. They may try to, you know, steal some personal things, but it's usually going to be to resolve conflict or to help me sort of believe in a plan that I may not necessarily believe in, but I've been asked to trust by Ahsoka. I don't want to be with this guy. Rex to me is not deep. Like, I love deep, but you know, if you've read the comics, you've seen in a very sort of visceral way why Kanan would sort of not think that's cool. So it's, you know, you'll see more of that than you will the space marriage lane, if that's what it's just not going to be as much of an option.
I would say it's more, I'm asking him to trust more than ever before.
Yeah.
Because if you have empirical evidence and a personal experience with a clone basically, you know, annihilating not only
And he looks
your
just
master-
like the dude who did it.
Exactly. I'm begging him to go from our small structure into a bigger militaristic structure, which he detests. And he must cooperate. So I feel like if there's an affection for them, it's now she's cashing that in to really get him as a call to action and to commit to what looks like a ridiculous idea. So I think the ask is bigger for Hera, and the fact that he follows through and does is a demonstration of his love. I don't know that we have time to talk about all that. So it's perhaps what's said without words.
But she loves me.
Yeah. I think I spend more time in season 2 hoping he's still alive, and I'm the getaway driver waiting, standing by. So there are a lot of really great lightsaber duels and chases and all sorts of things. No, she doesn't.
No, she doesn't.
Not in this iteration, thank God. But anyway, I think it's more what's said without words than what you'll actually see in terms of banter and affection.
All right, Justin, you want to close it out? This is the last question.
This is for Dave. I'm curious because of what you said about Sabine this season having a little bit more of a journey. And also it seems like there were more references to Mandalore in those 2 episodes than all of season 1. Can you talk a little bit more about the journey that Sabine is going to go on this season?
I mean, I just think it was important to flesh out all the characters, and you know, especially a character like Sabine. There's so many interesting things, just the fact that she's Mandalorian. And we dealt so much with Mandalorians in Clone Wars. It has a whole history that I've diagrammed at whiteboards on Lucasfilms multiple times with Pablo Douglas. We try to track all these family houses and who belongs to what. I mean, it's a very complex world, and one that I know fans are interested in. So I just think the idea that she's from this warrior culture gets brought to the forefront as we move forward, because I think people would want to know about it. I mean, you know, she, like anyone, has parents and a family, and what were they like? And now that we know that there was such a history on Mandalore, were they involved in any of that, you know, that we saw? The interesting thing to me has been, like, this was a strange discovery this season, but I found there to be at least 2 cases where we were filming something and had developed a character, and then I realized, oh, that character had been on screen in Clone Wars, but I didn't even know it, because they had a helmet on. So, but when you think about it, it's reasonable to assume that this character was standing right there. And I did, but because in Clone Wars they were just a background character wearing a helmet, you would never know. But now, it's like sometimes you find these people in this story as you evolve it. And I would say that's a bit of the case with some of Sabine's history. You know, that she wasn't around to see any of that. She was such a young child, but you know, it's important. I can't even get into the importance of developing these female characters in a multiple roles, as mentors, as combatants, strong personalities. You want the whole range for people to look at. And as you go through Star Wars, we have so many examples of so many different characters, you know, for boys to grow up emulating, and it's like, you know, we need to broaden that. It's just been a real goal of mine. My wife is very outspoken and all these things that she studies and researches, and the most important thing I've done is listen to her. And any other you know, woman that's come up to me to say, hey, this is what I feel we're missing and lacking. It's the same trait I took on, frankly, that made me successfully work with George. I listened to him. You know, I don't know the best way to tell those stories. I'm in a position where I have the authority to put them into play. So my strongest play here can be, I want to activate that. I want to create these opportunities and then see how far they can go. I mean, Tia, you know, has earned, I think, that her performance, Vanessa's performance, so strongly identified with girls because they go, oh my gosh, Han Solo was the pilot that I knew. Now it's Hera. And she's an awesome pilot. You know, what does that mean? When Ahsoka stepped on a stage and is the apprentice to what people always identified as the most powerful Jedi of all time, it was like a bomb for fans. What? How could that be? Well, it just is. Just deal with it. Guess what that means? It means that she's a better sword fighter than Kanan. Period. She's better.
I don't care. I don't have to know.
So I think
people take it way more personally than I do.
when you can develop these characters, though, it's just so important because it makes your universe real. It makes these, because people feel these characters are real, these people are real, and I just think it's the way to go. And she's interesting. Hera's interesting. I want to tell stories about compelling people. And, you know, Freddie gets his day, Taylor gets his day, Steve gets his day, even Chopper. Chopper gets his day. There's a massively huge Chopper episode.